Hey everyone, I wanted to give an update on our above ground pool. It's finished, and want to kind of walk through some of the features that I put into the pool that I've been pretty happy with, and cover some of the things that I kind of wish I'd done differently. Maybe it'll help save you a little bit of time. See my earlier video about installing a pool autofill. That worked out pretty well. I'll walk you through that. As you can see here, we have a waterfall running. Probably one of my two favorite features of this, and it's pretty cool to let it run when you have a party or people over, or just let it run and sit out here and read a book. It's pretty neat, nice, relaxing. So let's take a tour downstairs. A portion of the pool worked out really well, and the main reason is that I have this walk-up service area. There's an area probably about 2 feet by 2 feet that contains all of my access and switches and that type stuff, and that worked out fabulously. Where to do any service, all I do is walk up, turn everything off there, and my skimmer is here. I can walk up, clean it out. I can clean my skimmer basket. I can check the tabs in the chlorine injector. I can backwash the filter. And it's already hard plumbed. Now, one thing that you've already noticed is what appears to be a somewhat complex plumbing system, but it's actually pretty simple. In that water comes in primarily from the skimmer, goes down, and then crosses and comes up through a valve and union in one. I got it from Lowe's. None of the unions are expensive, but this is a pretty cool idea because it combines the shutoff along with the union. So with two unions and a third union going into the pump, I can just pop that whole assembly off and do whatever I need to do. The catch with those is once you pop that union, it is not a watertight seal. So if you're wanting to shut it off for winter or whatever, and you're wanting to pop that little three-leg switch off, it's not going to work as well. As you can tell, I have two Jandy valves in here. They work fabulously. They are not cheap. They are worth every penny. As you can tell here, I have one input from the skimmer, but I have a second input. The second input actually comes from a center drain, and you may or may not be able to see it there, but it's obviously located right in the center, and was apparently an unusual request for an above ground install. And it's one that if I ever install another above ground, I'll definitely do. I'll talk about that a little bit later. But both inputs to the pump come pretty well parallel, and that's the right leg here. It goes again through a switch, a union, and through a three-way splitter. The nice thing about these Jandy valves is they are variable. So if I want to suck 60% through the skimmer and 40 through the center drain, I can guesstimate on the valve, and that's exactly what the pump pulls. So that's actually pretty cool. It's not an on or off type situation. Union going into the pump, and as you can tell, I've hard plumbed the connection between the pump and the sand filter. I've seen some flexible cords. I was trying to go for more of a hard plumbing to reduce resistance and increase flow. I think it's definitely paid off. You can bend these PVC pipes. As you can tell, there's a tiny little kink in there. That one's not significant. It's more cosmetic than anything, although if you don't take your time and heat it evenly, you can end up with some significant kinks. There's a number of YouTube videos out there on bending PVC pipe, and I used a heat gun with this. You can get from Harbor Freight or whatever, and it's definitely worth doing, particularly if you have a number of bends. I did some sweeps here, and that's fine too. One thing I do wish that I had done in the plumbing was that put more unions in. As you can see, there's probably 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 unions in here, and I could probably stand a couple more. Remember, although unions are running about $10 a piece, they are your access to inside of your pipes. And if you get a clog, you have to get water out for winterization. They're invaluable. They really are. And they sure do be cutting the pipe and later putting a union in. So use as many of those as you can. I also hard plumb the drain from the sand filter, goes under here and goes down into the woods to to dump. This main pipe here is the output, which goes over here. Here's a clean out and goes into a second three-way valve. The three-way valve makes the determination between going to the waterfall or through the chlorine injector. And I like these chlorine injectors quite a bit. I've seen a number of other alternatives, and I really like the injector idea. All you have to do is just make sure you keep the tabs topped off, and there's a dial that you can set the amount of chlorine that goes into the pool, and it's pretty easy to use. The thing I'll mention is I ended up putting another clean out here. You can see two clean outs. This is the one from the return into the three-way valve back to the pool. This is coming from the center drain. I made what I thought was a pretty major mistake. When the guys installed the pool, they ran the pipe straight out here and didn't put any type of either clean out or switch. And given that we live in the Mid-South, we have some winters, obviously they freeze, and my plumbing is not below the frost line, so they're all eligible to freeze. What I thought I would do would be to pop those unions and jam it full of some compressible foam material. Pipe insulation was what I used, and use it to absorb the expansion. Didn't work out so well. So what I had to do is go in and cut the center drain line and put a clean out in. I also should have put a valve in there and should have put them as deep as possible. What I ended up doing, unfortunately, was using a Sawzall to cut the pipe. Well, if you can think about it, Sawzall is a lot of very efficient and not very fast, but very vibration prone. And the pipe ended up shaking. The sand ended up settling around there and sucking it from under the pool right at the edge there. Not a good place to have a big divot in the floor of your pool, not just for cosmetics, but just because of the strain on the liner. So what I ended up having to do was shore up a wall. I built a little wall out of wood and reinforced it with steel, and then used a hydraulic jack to jam in some sand back in there. That probably took me about a day to fix my screw up in that fashion, so don't do that. Use a handsaw, hacksaw, or even better, just when you put the thing in, do it right the first time. So, one more word about our waterfall. I did quite a bit of research on this and hadn't found anyone who did anything like this. I've seen a number of in-ground pools and jacuzzis that spilled over into the pool, usually in grounds and occasionally an on ground, but never an above ground. So this was kind of unique and turned out pretty nice. You can see a union in there. I probably should have put a union lower, because you can imagine these pipes are very shallow. They are very prone to freezing. So during winterization, you have to either antifreeze the heck out of them or get all of the water out, because it will freeze. And if you have enough water in there, it will burst. And boy, I tell you, it's a pain. A couple notes on the waterfall. This black thing is called a weir, W-E-I-R, and as you can tell from this angle, it is tilted very slightly. The reason I had to do that was I have a horse and a half pump, which is more than sufficient for our pool. This is a pretty good sized pool. It's a 30 round. 30 has around 23,000 to 24,000 gallons in it. So one and a half horse is fine for the water, but you're dealing with two things. One, when you set up a waterfall, you're setting up a head, and this head was probably about 6 foot, which is not a big deal. The bigger deal is the size of the pipes. The bigger the pipes, the more the water. And for a waterfall, you're really looking for volume. You're not looking for pressure. And horse and a half is fine for the pool, but not so much for the waterfall. I ended up with a much narrower waterfall than I wanted, but it still looks pretty cool, as you saw. The weir is a 22-inch weir. The weir itself ran about $120 online. You can get them from garden stores, online, eBay is where I got mine. And they're pretty easy to plumb. They're just done with, it's made out of ABS, and it's plumbed with traditional plumbing parts. I do have a union inside the box there. You can dress up the box however you want with flowers or whatever. Just be cautious if they're live flowers, then obviously you're dealing with chlorine-based water, so I chose not to go that route. The other thing to watch out for is we do live, like I said, in the southeast, and yellow jackets, mud daubers, and that type of stuff. Since it's enclosed, I have to open it up periodically, usually about once a month, and spray it down with wasp killer, and that serves as a pretty good repellent for those types of nasty surprises. It was built, I'll show you some pictures of it later as I pull it up, for people to stand on, although they shouldn't be jumping from that surface anyway, but you can sit on it, let your legs hang over into the waterfall or something like that. The other thing to note is that on the wood around the weir, it goes almost down to the top rail. I should have taken it down even further. It works fine here, but if I had taken it down probably another 4 inches, there would be almost no water that got backed up on the rail and ultimately out of the pool. It's a very small amount, so it's not a big deal, but just something that, again, the cutoff right there was a huge improvement. I use Liquid-Tite to run the connectors on over to the pump, and it really does make it easy. So all I do is I walk up, check the skimmer after turning the pump off, have my test kit in hand, dip, test, dump, and wash it out. I can clean the skimmer basket, I can do a backfill, or a backwash rather, and be done with pool maintenance in less than 5 minutes. My task. So surrounding the pool, as you can tell, with about 3/4 of decking, worked out really well because it lets this be a walk-up access. The other thing I'll kind of talk about is my autofill. Again, there's a number of autofills, particularly for in-ground, and there's some commercial products for autofills, but none of them really suited my purposes. So if you refer to my other video, gives an in-depth installation as I went through and put this thing in. It's a skimmer body hooked up with some plumbing components to a regular garden hose, and you turn the garden hose on and basically let the toilet valve do its job. And I gotta say, as far as function goes, it worked fabulously for keeping the water at a constant level. With any autofill, it will mask any slow leaks that you have. So just that can be compounded though because of the way I installed it. I installed it level with the skimmer, and looking back and figuring out how it actually worked out was, I wish I'd mounted it probably about 1 inch, maybe 1.5 inches higher, because as you can tell, the head of the autofill, the toilet valve, extends above the body. I really wanted it below the cover. Now that's not a big deal because it's not that visible. What does happen is, because I had to split the cover, when people get in and play in the pool, it splashes and it can knock that cover off since it's split. It's not firmly held in as much anymore. You can't really set it and twist it, which kind of locks it in place because it is split, and you do have the lever that actually works through the float valve. So that's something I'm still working on, but I wish I'd mounted a little bit higher, which would allow that post to be lower. So probably 2 inches would be okay. If you're installing one or thinking about installing one, put your skimmer in, figure out where your ideal water position is. And you can probably have 1 inch of water here on your autofill, and on your skimmer you may want a little bit more. So the lower on this you keep it, the more effective the skimmer action will be. So there's very little spill. I did tilt it forward probably about 30 degrees, and that really helps project the water into the pool and really reduce the amount of water that's going outside of the pool. But you can see there's a tiny bit of drip on the wood. Of course, it's all been sealed, so I'm not terribly worried about that. And it's not used continuously. Now, if you remember the plumbing scenario, this is non-chlorinated water, so it's fine to get in and put your head under anything like that, so you're not going to get any chlorine burns or discomfort or anything like that. So it's non-chlorinated water. So for cleaning and circulation purposes, the Waterfall is not used for circulation. So this is pretty heavily built. And as you can see, it's pretty simple. Just an elbow. I softened the pipe, put a little bend in it. Just your standard connectors there. I actually silicone that in for later removal, but it's very sturdily built. This is all just 5/4 decking material, and you can easily stand on it, sit on it, do pretty well whatever that you want. Uniform distribution of water throughout the weir. Otherwise it'd come out in spurts and everything wouldn't come out very smooth. So that was a pretty good choice. It's actually a pretty cool little setup. The center drain is a huge benefit. I didn't think I would like it as much as I actually do. These large pools, it's hard to reach the middle with a vacuum or anything like that. What happens is you can set the return from your pump off at an angle about 60 degrees and rotate it whatever direction, usually away from the skimmer. So in this case, it's going to be going counterclockwise. And all of your debris ends up in the middle. So you set your three-way valve at about 75% skim and 25% center drain, and it really does reduce the amount of vacuuming that you use to try to keep things clean in the pool. It won't pick up leaves, so set your pool up obviously away from trees if possible, and plan on some alternative shade. So, all right, well, I hope you appreciate the update. Hope it saves you a little bit of time. Hope you don't make the same mess ups that I did, and maybe you'll do your own waterfall or plumbing. If you do, let me know, and let me know how you get along with it. Send some pictures. Thanks. Bye.